Hey everybody, so this is a quick review of what we went over in class last week. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a simple low poly object and a high poly that we can bake from. And we're going to export those over to Substance Painter, bake up our maps, apply some textures in Substance, export them back so that we can use them and set them up in Arnold for render. Alrighty, so what I have here is just a basic cube. And I'm going to use this as a cutter. So if I grab this and then I grab this and we go to mesh, and we'll just do a difference on that. Okay. And I am then just going to duplicate this and stick it over here. Okay. So now I got this object and I got this one. What else am I going to do? Okay. Let's take this and let's bevel it. And so we're going to go into edit mesh and we will bevel this, and quite a bit smaller than that. We'll do something like this, but we'll do a bevel of 3. Okay, let me just turn off the wireframe shaded. So we can see now we just got a really simple clean bevel on this. Alright, turn the aliasing on so it looks good. So this is going to be our low poly over here, and this is going to be our high poly object. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to name them. So I'm just going to call this, we'll just call it chair underscore low, and this is going to be chair underscore high. Okay, so that underscore low and underscore high when you're working with Substance Painter can be really helpful, because if we had multiple objects here together, this way it would give you the ability to track them. As a matter of fact, if I just created a cube in here and I took this cube, let's say just take it up to 3, and let me just get it in here so we do have a multiple object. And I'm just going to do this, and we're going to do something so it's sort of in here. Let's say something like this, pretty close but not right up on top of it, just like that. And then we'll just move this back just a tiny bit like this. Okie dokie. And what I'm going to do with this is I will duplicate this, and the duplicate one I am going to just call box underscore high, and the one underneath I am going to call box underscore low. Okay, now the box underscore high, I'm going to give it the same bevel as over here, so I'm going to go edit mesh and hit it with a bevel, and the fraction will be 0.1. and the segments will be 3. Okay, so this box is in here exactly on top of the other one, which is exactly where I need it to be. Now this one also needs to be directly on top of this. So I have the high and the low directly on top of each other, and if we're going to do a bake, that's really important, because if I left this over here and I tried to do the bake would turn out black. Okay, so in this case what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this and zero that out and put it back right over here. Okay, now the two high objects, which are going to be here and here, these two guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign a new material to those, and what material it is, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to assign a new Lambert. Okay, and delete their history, and their transforms are frozen, and I'm going to call this, just leave it called Lambert. And then I'm going to grab the two low poly objects, and I am going to assign them a new material as well. Well, that can just be a Lambert as well, and it's going to be a Lambert 5. Okay, so I'm ready to go here to take these objects over to Substance Painter. The only thing I need to do is I need to just put some quick UVs on the low poly objects. I do not need to put UVs on the high poly objects. Okay, all we need to do, because what we're going to be using them for is just a ray trace or a ray casting projection to pick up this rounded edge on these. Okay, so what I'm going to do is grab the chair, and I'm just going to hit automatic, and then I'm going to hit the box for the low right here, And it's basically square, but just to make sure that it's not distorted, we'll do an automatic on that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the editor right here. And I'm going to grab both of these objects. And we can see over here that there's a little bit of overlap between them, and we don't want that. So let me just open this up, I'll turn this off, and you can see we have some overlap. So in the UV toolkit over here, what I can do is I can just go down to the arrange, and I'm going to go down to layout. I'm going to hold down shift, and let me just reset these so we can talk about this for a second. We're going to use the unfold 3D, and if when you're doing this something goes wrong and it says it can't find it, make sure that you go under Windows Preferences and Plugins and that you do turn on this unfold 3D plugin. Alright, so for packing purposes, I'm just going to make this 1024. The pre-scaling, and I'm going to say I'd like it to maintain its UV ratios. It can rotate the shells, it doesn't matter. I do want the rotation steps to be 90. You may not want your shells to be rotated, but in this case it makes no difference. So the texture is going to be there. The only thing I'm going to do is I want padding between the shells and I want padding on the tiles. Okay, so all I'm going to do is set this to 15 and set this to 15. And we are only using the one UV tile. So if I hit apply now, that should open everybody up and get them packed in nice and tight. Okay, so everybody's in here and we have nice uniform separation of all the tiles. Okay, so that should be good. And we can close that down, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to export these two guys together in one FBX. So we're going to go here, export selection, and I will go to the desktop, and I am going to say, well, as a matter of fact, I have these, so I'm going to use these. So I'm going to say poly low, save, and I'm going to say you can overwrite. And then the FBX window is going to come up, and a couple of options in here. We do want to make sure the smoothing groups are on, okay? And this is, we don't really need this on. You can leave this on or off, it makes no difference. And we are going to triangulate them on the way out, okay? Sometimes when you bring this up, referenced asset content will be on, but for our modeling, we don't need that to come out. Everything else we'll just ignore. Everything's fine, so we're just going to export this, and that's fine. Then I'm going to grab the two high objects, and we're going to do the exact same thing. We're just going to export the selection. I'm going to pick poly high and select that. And again, everything is fine. We'll just hit export. Okay. So with that in mind, let's move over to Painter. Okay, and now we have our two objects brought in. Okay, and these are our low poly. And we can navigate in this very much the same way as you can in Maya. If you hold down Alt, middle mouse button will pan you around, right mouse button zoom in and out, and the left mouse button will rotate. Depending on which object we select, you can see that they have been broken down into two texture sets, Lambert 4 and Lambert 5. And we can see the UVs on those. And the other nice thing about it is we can use these as selection sets for the two objects. Okay? So what we have here is the 2D view. So over here you can see that we have all the UVs for both objects. Okay? And this is the 3D view, and if we hit F2 we can just go to the 3D view completely like that. And the first thing we're going to do is just because it's going to make more sense to us visually, I think, is I'm going to just rename these texture sets. So this bottom one, I am just going to edit the name and call this chair, and this top one I am going to rename it and just call it box. Okay, and I'm going to show the box as well. Next thing I want to do is over here in the texture sets panel. Okay, here we can see what channels we're able to work in once we start dealing with textures. Excuse me, it matches up over here, and we got base through normal, and then this is again base color through normal. But all of what we can do in Substance Painter is also going to be based on the use of all these other maps which we need to bake. So what I'm going to do here is I am going to go into Bake Textures, alright, and we're just going to turn this up to 2048, and we're going to bake all of these textures. And what we're going to use is a high poly we have. Now, if we didn't have a high poly, we could actually click this and then just use the exact same model as our high poly. But in our case, if we click here, we do have a high poly model. And we could use a cage, if you know what a cage is. It's just a low poly envelope that you could put around your geometry, and it also helps with more complicated bakes. Down here, we have the ability, if we had a very complex object with a lot of pieces next to each other, sometimes they can interfere with the bake of the ambient occlusion or the normal. So what we could do is we could bake meshes per name, and then this way it would know that we were baking chair underscore high for chair underscore low. So that gives us the ability to do that. On the aliasing, we could actually choose aliasing if we want. I'll just put middle aliasing on this, and everything else should be just fine. We're not going to make any other changes. And I could either bake the individual set that I have selected, which is box, or if I needed to rebake it, we could do that. Or I could just have it batch process all our texture sets and all our objects. So what I'll do is I'll select this and let this bake. While it's baking, down here is the shelf, and this has all of the things that we could use, such as textures, materials, smart materials, and again over here we have display panels, and we can actually get to our viewer panels where we can see that this is actually being lit by an HDR image, and we can change that. We just can't get to it right now while this is baking. Over here is our brush settings, and when we start to do painting, we can get to it from over here. Again, texture sets are up here, and these are our paint layers. Now there's two different types of paint layers. There's paint layers that are just plain layers like this, and we have the ability to hand paint on them. And then next to it we have fill layers, which are basically flood layers, and we can also use them for flooding with textures. But you can't hand paint on that. You could paint on a mask with them by hand, but they behave like a flood layer. So we'll just wait for all of this to stop baking, and we'll be right back. Okay, and we are back. So now you can see our low poly have a really nice bake for the normal. So we're picking up all that rounded edge detail, which is really nice. Okay, and we do have all our other maps baked. Now there's no ID map because we didn't set up anything to read IDs inside of Maya. So if we had assigned color shaders to the individual parts, we could do that. But we did come up with our ambient occlusion layers and our normal maps, our world space normals, and our thickness and world position maps. And these are going to be great for when we do something that has rust or it has to leak down. It gives Substance Painter an ideal where in space our object is. Okay, so let's just do something really simple. I'm going to take, since we have a empty paint layer up here, I'm just going to add another one. And on this paint layer, I'm just going to, and I don't have my tablet hooked up, so we're going to be doing this with a mouse. I just want to show you how this actually works out this way. So here I couldn't just simply, I could increase the size of this. We could scroll up to here, and this is the lever to increase the size of our brush. So if we did want to increase the size of our brush, we could do that. We also have the hardness of the brush, which is down here, so I could bring the hardness up to a certain degree. And we have the chair selected. Let's go to the box, or let's go to the chair, select it, and then when we paint across this like this, we then have our red paint, and its shininess is pretty much the default when you set up Painter. Okay, but we have the ability to control this. So as of right now, we are painting with color, height, rough, metal, and normal. And let's just say we wanted to change the roughness of this a little bit. Let's say we wanted to increase the roughness. So what I'm going to do is bring up the roughness a little bit, And I'm going to even change the color just so this is a little bit more obvious. So we'll bring this, make this a little bit more orangey, and then what I'll do is I'll bring this right here. Alright? Now if I hold down Shift and right click, this rolls the light. And hopefully you can see that, but the orange is not as reflective as this paint, and that is specifically because we brought up the roughness. So if I brought down the roughness now to almost no roughness at all, and again I do this, what we'll get then is this mirror-like roughness, or no roughness whatsoever. We can see HDR perfectly clearly in there. Okay, so we could remove the height altogether. We could make this metal. So right now we have no metalness on this at all, so we could crank up the metalness, and orange metal is not going to make a ton of sense. So let's just bring this down and maybe do something in this vein. And let's bring up the roughness just a little bit so it looks a little bit more metal. Okay, and I'm going to do something like, well, this is fine. Let's just do this since we're here. So if I started painting across, let's say this corner here, let me just shift the light with Shift right, rotate just like this. So if I started painting across here like this, okay, now what we get is we get this nice metallic sort of a look. All right, and this may or may not be what you want, but you could certainly go in there and you could complete this by hand by manually painting this, okay, like that. And that's some of the ways that you can actually get in here and actually do paint some different levels of detail, whether it be color, height, roughness, metal. Height we'll get back to in a few minutes, but this once again though is considered a paintable level layer. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to add a fill layer above it, and then what I'm going to do is take this, I'll just darken this down just a little bit like that. I'm again going to turn off the height. I'm going to take the roughness down just a little bit and crank the metalness up to 1. Okay, so now when we have this, you'll see that we have this very smooth metallic surface. Okay, and again with the base color we could change this to a very bright metallic surface. So we've got something more like this. If we wanted more roughness to it, we could add more roughness. We could take this down and it was chrome-like, or we could take the roughness up and you get something more like that. Okay, so this is a fill layer. Now we can once again change the fill layers aspects with a mask, but we'll get to that in just a few minutes. I just wanted to understand what you were looking at. So this was the paint layer, and as a matter of fact I'm going to get rid of it. I'm going to add another paint layer on top. I'm going to grab this fill layer and I'm going to delete that. So we're back to the default color inside of here. All right. Down here on the shelf, we have a couple of other options that are kind of neat. So we have the ability to, these are all nice material starts that we can actually work with. So let's say we wanted to do something down here, and it could be simple as concrete. So we could basically grab this concrete and bring it up. And this will give us a nice concrete start. And if we hold Shift right click, we can kind of get a look at this. Just like this. Okay, so that might be something that you want to do. And let's say we wanted to add something interesting to that. So I'm going to take this layer and put it on top. And this layer I am going to say, I'm going to brighten this up a little bit. And I'm going to, it's fully metal, which is great, and which add a little bit of roughness to this. And what I'm going to do then is I'm going to go to the alphas, and for my base color of the mesh, or at least for my mesh here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab, let's say this, and what I will also do is I'm going to add a little bit of height to this and just raise this just a little bit. So let's go over to this side here and push this in. Now I'm about to paint with this using this alpha. When I'm using a brush, again, I have the options over here for size, flow, and everything, but there's a shortcut. I can hold down the control key, and when you do, you see over here all the options that you have available. And some of the options would be that if I use the the control with the left mouse button, that controls its opacity if I drag left and right. If I drag up and down, I can rotate this. Now if I hold the right mouse button and drag side to side, it will increase the size, and if I drag up and down, it will this will give me the size, and over here I could always just change the flow. But what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to paint that. Okay, so what that did was, as you can see, is it gave me a nice raise with my metal, okay, which is kind of cool. And let's say here in the front, let's do something else interesting. I am going to pick a new one. I'm going to pick this one, and I am going to turn off metalness. Okay, I'm going to take the height. Where's my height? Take the height down just a tiny bit, and I'm going to add a channel this time because these are the channels that we have to work with. But in this case, if I want to add an extra channel, I can go into channels here and I can add glossiness or opacity. In my case, I want to add an emissive channel. So you can see right now here we've added an sRGB channel for emission, and if I turn it on right here, then we get the ability to paint in emissive. So what I'm going to do there is just drag this down and get that. Okay, and I probably don't need roughness, so I'm going to leave roughness off. And in this case, we're just going to go with the color, height, and emissive. Probably don't need normal, but I'll leave it on anyway. And let's see, what else can I do? What else might be neat? Something like, yeah, I'll use this instead. Okay, so what I'm going to do is use the right mouse button with control, and that will shrink this. Okay, and I am going to bring this down a little bit further, and I'm going to pop one of these right here, and I will pop one of these right there. Okay, so these two are emissive now, which is kind of convenient. And let's see what else I can do. I have this, which will give me, if I hold down control, this will give me, and if I hold down the left mouse button and drag this way, I can make this vertical like this, right? And as opposed to this obnoxious green, I'm going to pick obnoxious orange, and I'm just going to put one of these right here, and I'm going to go right over here, and I will put one of these right there. Okay, so now we've got a little bit of variation on this, which is kind of cool. So I think we'll just leave that as such. The only thing left I really want to do here is I am going to add a material to the cube. So let's go over to the box, and the box has its own two layers here. I'm going to go down to, actually, let's go down to the smart materials, and I will pick something interesting down here. Let us see. Maybe. Let's see, what's interesting? Painted steel or steel painted? Nah, what about this one? Maybe. What else do I have that could be interesting? Leather? Yeah, let's do leather. Okay, and then I'll stamp it with something. So I'm going to grab the leather, and I'm just going to bring the leather up here like that. Okay, and then I'm going to get rid of this. Well, actually, I'm probably going to use that, but okay. So now what you have here is we have this nice start for a leather material up here. Okay, and what's nice about the smart materials is we can go in and we can change leather patterns. So if you didn't want that pattern, or you wanted to dial down this pattern, we could go into there, and you can see where if I just do this, this will sort of dial this down, or this, right? So we have edge damage, which is going to be this, and this is the dust layer, and the dust layer is going to be based on, let's see, what's the dust layer going to be based on? It looks like a multiply, and I'm going to just take this off, or you could take it all the way up if you want. It looks a little yucky actually. I'm not a big fan of this dust layer. What about if I did triplanar projection? No. And what about the hardness? We take the hardness down. Yeah, anyway. Okay, so we got that. Let's just take the dust off altogether. I think that's even better. So over here, what we're going to do is just put a stamp of some sort in here. So what I might do is, now that I have this, I'm going to go back up to materials and pick something like this wood. Let's put this wood up here. Okay, and now that I have this wood and I can get rid of this, I'm going to click on it and we can add a mask to it. And a mask can work one of two ways. Either a white mask is going to be completely visible and then I can paint away what I want to hide, or a black mask will hide everything, okay? And then I can paint away what I want to show. So in this case, I might go down to something like where's the word? I thought there was the word substance in here. We'll just use area. Area, something like that. I'm going to hold down Control and left, and right click and bring that up. It's too much. Then left click and bring that in like this. Okay. Now I want to probably not, with my mask here, I am going to use, what am I going to use? I would say let's see, I could show this just like this, and I could just do something like that. Alright, so that gives me this. Alright, so let's just say I did this, and let's just say then on top of that we grab another smart material and let's just put some what else do I got here? Copper, because copper is awesome. We'll put copper up on top of this. Ooh, that's brutal. Okay. And we will then add a black mask to that. And as a matter of fact, this one, I want to see what happens. Let's use a generator. So I'm going to add a generator to this. And if I am correct, we should be able to go to the copper mask, or down to the generator, and over here if we just add metally edge, there you go, this should show the metally edge of the copper all around our object. Okay, and again we can change the wear level, so we can make this less, we can bring up the wear levels, we could take the wear contrast much higher, so that allows us to bring this up even further to kind of get that edge. The grunge amount, we can bring the grunge down. Alright, so we can get this sort of a thing. Alright, okay, so let's just kind of stop it there. I think that's kind of what we can do as far as putting down decals and different types of materials, and we have emissive here and such like that. So let's just say that this was our object, or our two objects in this case, and we wanted to export all of this texture work for our uses. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go export textures, and we are going to pick where we want them to go, and I'm going to say they're going to go to the desktop, and I am going to make a new folder, and I'm going to say sp underscore demo 2. Okay, that's going to be our folder. And what we can do here is we can then pick the configuration that we want. The configuration that we're going to want is Arnold AI standard for Arnold 5. This is going to give us all these maps, okay, for the box, and it'll give us all these maps for the chair. The other thing I want to make sure of is that I'm going to send them out as, let's send them out as TIFF objects. All right, and we'll just make them, well, they can stay 8-bit. That's fine. Don't really need them to be 16, but we could make them 16 if we wanted. Let's see, everything else looks good. They're 2K, and we can just export. And now it's just going through the trouble of baking all the masks. And now if we go in here, all our maps are baked, and these are our metalness. And this is the metal for the other one. The only issue we're going to have here is the height maps. Okay, so we have a height map here and a height map. Now, if you're not going to be using height maps, it doesn't really matter, and you don't necessarily need to, because these are the normals, and the normal maps are just fine. But if you want the option to be able to use height maps and displacement, we have to do one more bake. So we're going to go back in here, export textures, and as opposed to picking AI standard 5 this time, we are going to pick Arnold 5 height 32. And what this is going to do is simply just rebake that, and we can set the depth to 32-bit. And this will give us the height maps that we actually want in here. Okay? So we should be in good shape now. So let's return to Maya. Alrighty, now we're back in Maya. Okay, and we have our two objects here. These are chair low and chair high. And I've gone ahead and set up a simple sky dome with the panorama HDR that we were using over here. So this is the exact same HDR. You can get to this by inside the files inside of Algorithmic. You can just do this over here. You can show in the Explorer and drag my Explorer over, and you can see it's in Substance, Resources, Shelf, Algorithmic Environments, Exterior. Okay, so this is the same situation that we have over here, and we're about to rebuild these shaders here in Maya. So what I'm going to do is I'll just put this down here in the corner like this, and I'm going to bring up the hypershade. And in the hypershade, what we're going to need to do is, first things first, let's assign a couple of Arnold shaders here. So I'm going to grab this one and say new material, shader, Arnold standard, and we'll grab this guy and do the exact same, and we're going to say new material, Arnold, AI standard, just like that. So we got these two going on, and just so we don't get lost, I'm going to name them. This is going to be chair underscore mat, and I'm going to select this, and let's just delete the history on that. Delete the history, and there you go. And we'll go to here, and this is going to be box underscore mat. Okay, so we'll just scroll that down, and I'm going to go get here are our two shaders, box and mat. So what I'm going to do is just grab the chair one first and graph it. And we'll put this over here. I'm going to go there, go to the desktop, SP demo, and what I need here is all of the chair maps. Okay, so we'll just grab this and we'll just drag these guys in here for now. Okay, to organize all this, we'll just select everything and we'll look at the input-output nodes, and that will kind of line everything up the way we can get to it. Okay, so let's just look here for a second. Where's my base color? Here it is. Let's put the base color on top. Let's get roughness underneath metal, and we'll bring metalness up underneath. So we've got base color, metal, roughness. Here is our emission, and we have normal and height. We're probably just going to use normal today. Okay, so let's just do a little bit of housekeeping on some of these materials before we even bother getting to use them. So over here we can see that this base color was brought in. It's an sRGB, and it is quadratically filtered. I'm going to shut off the filter and leave everything else as is. Here's the metalness. Metalness should be raw. Okay, and I'm going to shut off the filter. And depending on the filter here, we may want to bring up the gain, but we do want alpha is luminance because we're going to pipe the alpha channel into the metal. And here is the roughness, and we too are going to turn this into a raw image, and I'm going to shut off the filter. And we have the emissive. Oh, we forgot on roughness. We are going to make alpha is luminance, and the emissive is fine. As a matter of fact, what we'll do is we'll just shut that off as well. The filter type, it just kind of blurs and softens it, and if we need it, we'll turn it back on, but I don't think we're going to need it. And the normal map as well, we'll just shut that off, but it is an sRGB image, and we'll just use that for now. Okay, so let's take our out color and pipe that into the base color right here. Alright, so let me just put this over here and bring this up so we can see that our base color is indeed piped in over here. Next we're going to go with the metalness, and for the metalness we're going to go here, and we will, if I can get to this, we're going to bring the metalness in over here. So we'll just grab this metalness and pipe it in right there. Okay, and I can start to see where we're picking up some of the metal shine over here. The only thing we want to do is we're going to crank up the metalness over there. Okie dokie. Next we're going to need roughness, and the roughness is going to go under the spec roughness, not the diffuse roughness. So we will grab this and pipe that in here. Alright, and let me just see what I have this set to. Just to see if it's okay. Let's just take that down to like 2 while we're working. Oh, not that. Let's do 2. Like that. There we go. That'll speed this up just a little bit so we can see the metalness on this side of this. Okay, so we got a little of that nice metal over there, and it is much rougher looking now. Okay, so as far as the emissive goes, we have the emissive color, and that's what we're going to pipe this into. So we're going to take the out color of emissive and pipe this into emissive color. Alright, and what we'll need to do is go down to the emission, and you can see that we are piped into color, but what we need to do is crank up the weight. Okay, so that gives us the weight of the emissive, and this should be casting light if we turned off the sky dome for a second. As a matter of fact, we can kind of see here we are casting just a tiny bit of light, which is good. That's exactly what we want. And now we're going to get down to the normal. If I can get the normal out of here. And we will go to, on this material, the geometry. And I'm going to grab the normal and pipe this into the bump map. Okay. So we're starting to definitely get an effect now. So pipe this in a little bit closer. I think this is, I don't know, is this good or is this, it looks weird. Sometimes what happens is the green channels can be inverted, and I think that's what we're having right here. So let's do this. Let's go into the bump node, the bump 2D node, which is here. If I can get this. And we need to go into, this is going to be set the tangent space, which is good. And I want to go to here, and let's see if I can remember where this belongs. I think it is down here somewhere. It is, see, the bump node is here, and what I'm looking for is on the map itself. Yeah, so let's do this. This is the normal map. So let me scroll down on the normal map, and let me just do this. Maybe I can't reach it from here. Let's take a look. And not in the normal, this is the map itself. Let me go to the bump node. Ah, this is where I wanted it. On the bump node over here, what we need, and what I'll do is I'll bring this up so we can actually see, is under the Arnold tab, we have flipped the R and the G channel, and I don't think we're going to need that. So what I'm going to do is unflip these. Yep. And that is going to give us the raised metal effect that we had before. So if we look at this, we should see a much nicer effect, and we get that raised metal effect. Okay. So just remember that if your channel looks weird, in particular from Substance Painter, sometimes when you're putting stuff out, Arnold is going to automatically want to flip these, and that's probably not what we want. Okay, so let's just pull this out. All right, and let's just call that done for now. So what I'm going to do is go into the, let's just grab this all. And let's look at that nice and laid down. And I got the height map down here, but I don't want to deal with the height map in this example. So what I'm going to do is go to the box material, and we'll just put this over here. And I'm going to go back and grab all of the box maps and put them over here. And then just grab all this and do the input outputs. This all here. Drag this all back, and what do we got? Where is base colors? All the way down here. Let's put base. Let's get roughness out of here. Metalness, normal, and we'll put roughness right in there. And this is normally the order we're going to use these guys. And the base color is fine. sRGB. We got metalness. We don't want that, and we do want to set this to raw, and we have, and we want to set alpha is luminance because we are going to be sending out the alpha channel. And roughness, we once again don't want this. Roughness is also going to be raw, and we will set alpha is luminance. Normal map is fine. I'm just going to turn off the blurry stuff, and again this I'm not even going to use, so just make it go away. All right. So we'll just grab this and we'll wire all this up. So we're going to take the out color and pop that into the base color there, and let me just find my render, and there it is. So we can see that we're already starting to build out this. So there's our that, and now we're going to go to the here, and if we scroll up, we will let's turn this up. And you can see we're picking up some nice highlights in here. Let's grab the metalness map and drag the metalness there. Okay, that gives us the nice metalness on this. Okay, next we're going to need the roughness, and the roughness is going to go into the spec roughness. So we'll just grab this and drop that map into there. And last but not least, let's go down here and grab this normal map. And this should be fine. And what we'll do is grab the normal map and grab this. And we'll go down to not this, but the geometry. And we'll grab the normal map and pipe it into this channel. And a couple of few things we got to do. We need to change this to tangent space. Okay, and then we're going to go into the bump value, and we can probably turn this down. Although the map is looking a little bit funky, so let me just go into the, let's do this over here. Let me put this over there for a second. Go to Arnold, and let's go to the bump. And let's just flip these two again. I think that's going to be better. Yep, that'll be better. Okay. And we're in the bump. And let's take this bump down, something like 0.25. And the only thing I can think of we could do is we could gamma correct the metalness, or we could just bring it up its alpha gain. So let's say the alpha gain of like a 2.2. It doesn't seem to be doing much of anything. Let's see. Alpha gain of 0. else could we do here? Let's go 1.5. Yeah, something like that. And color gain. What is the color gain on this? I don't think this is going to do anything, but I'm going to take a peek at it. 2. And I just want to bring up that shininess of that metal a little bit. Alright, there we go. A little bit of shininess on that. So we have metalness over here. And we are there in the diffuse roughness and the weight of this, the IOR. We can take that down a little bit, I guess. Okay. So let's see. Let's take this and rotate this just a little bit. Okay. That puts the light behind us. What I want to do is actually put the light in front of us, like this, and it sort of blows it out a little bit. Bit too much. Bring it around like that, and let's just go into there. And on the specular, we'll take this up to 3. And let's put a sample on this. Oh, we have samples up to 3 already, so we should be in pretty good shape. And just move that a little bit further, see if I can get a bit more shine on that. Okay. So there we are. And it's never going to be absolutely perfect, and I think in some cases it'll be better than in other cases. But we're getting that nice texture of the leather across here. And let me just take the camera AA up a little bit more. And we'll do that. Oops, I don't need that. Do this. So we're getting the nice bump material here, and we're getting everything else we really need. Kind of getting the metal over here. I think something might have cooked wrong with the normal map, because we are picking up an edge, but if you get this far, that'll be good. And I don't think, I mean, the bake over here is just fine. So this is working real nice. We got a nice rounded edge there, so it just could be something with that particular material, because everything else looks really good. As a matter of fact, if we turn this off, this is our self-illuminated light. So we do have that, and we can take these up to 3, and these are excuse me, these are our self-illuminated lights, or our emission lights. And again, we could you know, take the exposure of this down a little bit like that and match it with what we had in Substance Painter. Okay, so that should do the job. That's basically what you need to do to get your maps across. There'll be times when you want to change the gamma or affect the gamma of your maps, but for the most part, it's not a tremendously complex process. A little bit time consuming, but so let's go to this and graph the network. So again, you've got your roughness, your emissive, this, your base color is running into your base color. And should you have used the displacement, you could put the displacement right into this displacement shader right here. And we'll talk about that another time. Thank you guys very much. Bye-bye.